So we were looking at Newton's second law last time. So we looked at the statement of second law that net force acting on a body is equal to the rate of change of its momentum. Okay, this is the general statement, and of course we saw specifically that net force becomes mass into acceleration when we are considering a body of fixed mass m. Then the equation becomes this. Okay, so having understood this, now we will concentrate mostly on the applications of this. Okay. So we had seen a couple of examples where there were variable mass systems also last time, but today we will concentrate on the application of net force is equal to mass into acceleration, where there are multiple forces acting on a body. Okay, so let's look at an example to begin with. Okay. So a block of mass 2 kilogram is in gravity free space. Okay, that means it's in outer space where there's no gravity acting on it. Okay, at rest at t equal to 0. Okay, now two forces of magnitude 4 newtons each act on it from t equal to 0 onwards, such that its displacement s is equal to 25 meters after, or you can say at time t equal to 5 seconds. Okay. So from this we have to first of all find out the acceleration of the block, from that the net force, the magnitude of the net force acting on it. Okay, and from that the angle between the two forces acting on it. Okay, so just try out this question, people. Yeah, so don't worry, and what we are discussing in laws of motion today will be more than enough for your assessment paper on Monday in school. Yeah. So that's correct, Kshitij. The answer for acceleration is correct. Medansh, your answer is not correct. They are not acting in the same direction. So the first part, you will get the magnitude of the acceleration to be 2 meters per second square. This is kinematics. You will just use the relation that initial velocity was 0, acceleration you have to find out, but the displacement is 25 meters at t equal to 5 seconds. So using s is equal to half at square, you will get the value of this. Now from this you will understand that the net force magnitude wise is mass into acceleration. So that means that the net force is going to have a magnitude of 2 kilograms into 2 meters per second square. It's going to have a magnitude of 4 newtons. Okay, and now it comes to this, that the net force acting on the body is the vector sum of the two forces, let us say. Okay, and magnitude of F1 is equal to magnitude of F2 equal to 4 newtons. Okay, and interestingly, magnitude of net force is also 4 newtons. So from your vector algebra, therefore you understand that theta has to be 120 degrees. You don't even have to do anything, because you know from your knowledge of vector algebra that this has to be a situation of equilateral triangle. So the two forces acting on the body, actually in Newton's laws it's better to use the parallelogram law kind of thing. So if this is the body of mass m, the two forces acting on it must be acting at 120 degrees to each other. So they would be like this, let's say F1 and F2. Okay, they are of magnitude 4 newtons each, so that the net force is going to be, as you know, the diagonal of the parallelogram. Okay. This is going to be the net force. Okay, so that is also going to be 4 newtons. Okay, so if you do the question like this, that you want to find out how much theta is, but F1 is equal to F2 equal to 4 newtons, so you can use the rhombus formula, that you can do this also. Okay, suppose you take this. Okay, so 2 into 4 into cos theta by 2 is equal to 4 newtons. Do it this way also. So you can see that cos theta by 2 is half. That means theta by 2 is 120 degrees. Sorry, theta by 2 is 60 degrees. So theta is 120 degrees. So this is another way you can do the question. But there's nothing more in it. It's vector algebra. Once you've done this part, ये 60 degrees है, so theta is 120 degrees. Okay, or you can also use triangle law, that mod of f1 plus f2 will be root of f1 square plus f2 square plus 2 f1 f2 cos theta. You can also use this formula, or you can use this formula. But see, all this is unnecessary. The thing is that, you know, by now you should be so clear with your vectors that you know that if two vectors of equal magnitude is giving you a third vector, if you have this situation that a plus b is equal to c and magnitude of a is equal to magnitude of b is equal to c, it has to be the case of the theta equal to 120 degrees. Okay, it has to be this case. This is C. Shouldn't have to think twice about it. The value of the acceleration we came from here ना, अभी यहाँ पे लिखा s is equal to half at square, इसमें substitute करो s का value. Just now I explained that only ना बेटा. It's a kinematics situation for acceleration. You substitute this and this over here, So that is giving you the value of acceleration. Because the question is clearly giving you that it started from rest. Okay, that's fine, but understood the method, no? Would have got a different acceleration, but method is same. Yes, Prince, is it clear now? So what are the steps over here? First we calculated the acceleration from the kinematics, first step, okay? Then we applied Newton's second law, so net force is equal to mass into acceleration, so we got net force. Then we went back to the problem and understood that how is this net force coming? Because of two forces, let's say F1 and F2, which are of same magnitude 4 newtons, acting from t equal to 0 onwards. So this resultant force is the sum of two forces of equal magnitude 4 newtons each, and the net force is also 4 newtons. So automatically you know that theta has to be 120, and if you don't know that by chance, then you either use the rhombus theorem, okay, or you use the formula of the rhombus theorem, okay, or you use the triangle law formula, whatever suits you. So many different ways of doing it by vectors. You can even use component algebra if you want, okay, but it's really not required. Is it clear now, Prince? Yes, last one is clear. Good. Okay. Let's see another example. Now in this one, what is happening is, we have a block, okay, which is of mass 50 kilograms. Take g equal to 10 meters per second square. This is a vertical plane, so g is downwards like this. Now this is kept at rest by application of two separate forces, okay. So there are two separate forces that are being applied to this block. So imagine, this block has a small hook kind of thing over here attached to it, and on this hook there are two separate forces that we are applying. So one of them is F1, and it is acting at an angle of 30 degrees to the horizontal, and the second force we are applying is F2, okay, and that one we are applying in a direction which is perpendicular to this, okay, 90 degrees to this. So the block is kept in equilibrium by the action of the two forces F1 and F2, okay. So find their magnitudes in newtons. This is the next thing we do, okay. So here we'll understand the term equilibrium. इसका मतलब क्या होता है? Equilibrium का मतलब net force is zero. That the net force is zero. Okay, so body at rest in equilibrium state. Okay, what happens to it? It will remain at rest because there is no motion to begin with, okay, and then equilibrium means net force on it is zero, so there is no rate of change of momentum, so its momentum remains zero. So this is again an application of Newton's second law, that net force is equal to zero means that acceleration of the body is zero. So if it is at rest, it will just continue in a state of rest. So rest of the problem is vector algebra. You have to just work out the vectors. So F1 is at 30 degrees to the horizontal and F2 is perpendicular to F1. So here you can see F2 is perpendicular to F1. Okay, Prince, I'll scroll up, but I suggest first you work out this question, then you come back to the previous question later. Okay. Do all that noting down later. First you try out this question at the moment. No, their magnitudes will not be same. You have to find out how much their magnitudes are. This is a very easy question of vector algebra. I have given you enough hint in the question. Equilibrium का मतलब क्या है? Net force 0 है. Now what all forces are acting on the body? F1, F2 and the weight. No, because it's in a vertical plane, you can see the G arrow is pointing downwards. So weight of the object is pointing downwards. So the weight is balanced by the vector sum of F1 and F2. You have probably taken the weight wrong, Anmol. Your ratio of forces is okay, but the weight itself is 500 newtons. Na? 50 kg into G is 500. So the order of magnitude of your forces F1 and F2. Yes, Aman, your answer is correct. Okay, so let's understand what's happening over here. On the body, there are three forces which are acting. Okay. So on this block, there are total of three forces. Earth is pulling it down, which is the weight of the block, and that mg, you know, is 500 newtons. Okay. And the other two forces which are acting are F1, which is at 30 degrees, and F2, which is at 90 degrees to this. So the vector sum of these forces, okay, has to be 0. That is, vector sum of F1, F2 and mg has to be 0. So that's why I told you it's a vector problem. You know, the sum of three such vectors. Now you know number of methods of how to make the sum of three vectors 0 like this. Okay, one is that you can just make components. So what you do is you take this as the vertical as your y-axis, take the horizontal as your x-axis, and now just take each of the forces and write them in component form. So this will become F1 cos 30, okay, plus F1 sin 30 j cap. These will be the components. Okay, so this force has components like this. Okay, then your next force, F2. Now F2 is acting like this. It is acting perpendicular to this one, so that means this angle is 60. So it will have a negative x component of F2 by 2 and a positive y component of root 3 by 2 F2. So F2 in component form we can write as minus F2 j cap. Okay, and you have your third force mg, which is directly acting downwards, so you don't have to dissolve it. So mg is just minus 500 j cap. Okay, now the sum of these three has to be 0. Net force has to be 0. So how will the sum of these three become 0? For that, just add the x components. So root 3 by 2 F1 minus F2 by 2 I cap, okay, plus F1 by 2 plus F2 into root 3 by 2 minus 500 j cap. This has to be 0. So this has to be 0. So F1 is F2 by root 3. This is equation 1, and then this has to be 0. So F1 by 2 plus F2 root 3 by 2 minus 500 has to be 0. Okay. So F1 plus root 3 F2 has to be 500 into 2 or 1000. Okay, now substitute this. You can substitute F2 as root 3 times F1. So F1 is 250 newtons and F2 is 250 by root 3 newtons. Okay, so that becomes your answer. now you substitute from here. Okay, so you'll get this, and from this you'll get the answer. So as you can see, it's just very simple. You are just solving this vector relation, that the vector sum of these three forces is 0. Okay, so just make a note of this. Yeah, so Ian, let's take it from the beginning again. Because the acceleration of the body is 0, so your net force has to be 0. Have you understood now? Yeah, I'll scroll down, don't worry, but let's take it from the beginning. So you're starting from this step over here, that net force has to be 0. This one. Understood now? So net force is 0, matlab kya ho raha hai? There are three forces acting on the body, which are these three. You can see in this diagram, these are the three forces. So their vector sum has to be 0. So we have to solve for this. So how we are solving for this condition that the resultant of these three is 0? First you are writing F1, F2 and F3 in component form. So this is the three forces in component form. Taking the vertical as your y-axis and horizontal as your x-axis. First of all, you are writing them in component form. Then having written them in component form, next step what you are doing, you are adding them. This is the addition in component form. Okay, so you can see the three x components are so this only, when you solve it, it is root 3 by 2 f1 I cap plus f1 by 2 j cap, right? Whereas this one is this, because this angle is 60. So now add these three vectors f1, f2 and mg. So the x component is becoming this root 3 by 2 f1 minus f by 2 plus 0. So that's this. The y component is becoming this plus this plus this. Okay, so f1 by 2 plus root 3 by 2 f2 minus 500, because this has a negative y component. So their resultant has to become 0. So this whole vector is 0 now. So if a vector is 0, okay, then that means that both its components are 0. If it's two dimensional, if it's three dimensional, all three components are 0. So this has to be 0. This whole thing has to be 0. And this whole thing has to be 0. So now you have two unknowns and two equations which you are getting from this. This is one equation, this is the other equation. Yeah, adding with I cap and j cap common. Okay, so okay, good. So just make a note of this. Okay, so hope this is clear to all of you. Okay, so is this question finally clear to all of you? Understood this? या द जे कैप सिंप्लीफिकेशन देखो तीनों का सम किया ना. सो जो पहला वेक्टर था f1, दैट वंस जे कॉम्पोनेंट इज f1/2, second one's y component is f2√3/2, and third one's, which is mg, is -500. So this sum is 0. So f1/2 plus √3/2 f2 plus or minus of 500 is 0. Rest is just algebra. Take the 500 that side, LCM 2, carry it that side. So f1 plus √3 f2 is 1000. And then substitute f2 from here as what? √3 f1 from your first equation. So these are your independent equations 1 and 2. But now we have to use the two equations simultaneously na, to solve for the two variables f1 and f2. So from the first equation you can substitute f2 as √3 f1 in the second equation. So substitute f2 over here as √3 f1, this one. So you'll get √3 into √3, so 3 f1. Is it clear now, Midaj? Okay, good. Okay, so these are some more examples of simplification. Now we will obviously come back to more examples. The whole chapter is about application of Newton's second law. Acha, you have to note down, just a minute. Okay, so this whole chapter is about this type of simplification only. Vector sum, vector difference, those kind of things. Which is why it was very important to learn vectors first. Would not have come to Newton's laws of motion without vectors. So throughout this chapter we will be using component algebra and sum and difference of vectors regularly, whereas we won't really be using dot product and cross product in this chapter. Those applications will come in further things in physics later. Okay, in work power energy there will be dot product, in rotational mechanics there will be cross product. So each part of vectors has its own set of applications in various different chapters. This whole chapter is basically about component algebra of vectors. In the problem solving part is basically about component algebra. But yeah, along with that there are other things to learn also, and we will go learn them along the way. So anyhow, let's come to the statement of Newton's third law first of all, and then we will come to, so the first two we had seen. Now the third law, this is called the action reaction principle. Okay, which most of us are experienced with at an experimental level. We know that if we hit our hand against something which is rigid, then our hand tends to experience a reaction force which can be very painful at times. Okay, you kick at something, it kicks back at you. Okay, when one object collides with another object, it tends to recoil back. Okay, so things like that. Sure, from our everyday experience we understand that every action, okay, has an equal and opposite reaction. This is the statement. Now what it means, it basically means that if a body, let's say A, applies a force, okay, which we can call as the action on another body, let's say B, okay, then B must definitely apply a force on A which is equal and opposite. And this is what we call as the reaction. Okay, so one simple way of illustrating this is that if somebody A is interacting with somebody B, okay, in such a way that A is applying a force on B which is given by this vector, the force on B because of A, then according to Newton's third law, there is 100% certainty that B will apply an equal and opposite force on A. So this is the force on the body B applied by the body A. So this is what we can call the action over here, suppose. Okay. Then this one is the force on the body A applied by B, which we can call as the reaction. Okay. So according to Newton's third law, without fail, every time what will happen is that this pair of forces will be such that the force on A because of B will be equal and opposite to the force on B because of A. Okay. Okay. This, remember that if we say the vector A is equal to minus of the vector B, it means that magnitude of A is equal to magnitude of B and direction are opposite. So this is what this means. Okay. That the magnitude of the two forces is same, but directions are opposite. Okay, so this is the statement and the meaning of the statement of Newton's third law, that every action has an equal and opposite reaction. Yes, even in the case of vacuum. For example, Ian, like heavenly bodies like, stars, planets, asteroids, comets, whatever, they are moving around in the vacuum of space. But the gravitational pull that they have on each other is always in agreement with Newton's third law. That if one planet is attracting another planet's mass with a certain amount of action force, the second planet will attract back the first one with equal and opposite reaction force. Okay. Or for example, if two electrons are just floating about in space, they will both be repelling each other with equal and opposite force, because they are like charges, so like charges repel each other. Similarly, you have an electron and a proton. It doesn't matter whether they are on Earth or in outer space or in gravity-free environment or whatever, they will always attract each other with equal and opposite force. That is the nature of force. That is part of the nature of force, which we understand both from theoretical principle of Newton's third law as well as from experiment. Okay, till date, all experiments in physics have shown that the fundamental forces of matter, like electrostatic force, gravitational force, etc., they're always acting in action-reaction pairs. They're always in agreement with Newton's third law. There's nothing to suggest that this law can be contradicted. Okay, so hope this is clear. Okay, this is just the statement of Newton's third law. So this law now applies to any and every real situation of forces. Okay, so let's look at some, like real life examples of how this Newton's third law works out. So for example, we have a positively charged particle of charge q1 and a negatively charged particle of minus q2 at a distance r. Okay, now you know from your knowledge from chemistry of Coulomb's law and atomic structure, you can see that they apply equal and opposite force on each other. Okay, so we can say that this one is the force on particle 1 because of particle 2. This one is the force on particle 2 because of particle 1. And these forces have that relationship that they are equal and opposite. They are equal in magnitude and opposite in direction. So their magnitudes, for example, you know from Coulomb's law, they are that constant multiplied by q1 q2 divided by r square, where r is the distance. Okay, and you know that this is a attraction force. Okay, so obviously this is opposite in direction. To F12. Okay, so hope this is clear, people. Another example of the application of Newton's second law is, for example, if we have a spring which is relaxed. Okay, but next what we do is we subject the spring to an external force like this, because of which it tends to get extended. So now it is in an extended state. So what will happen is that the spring will apply a backward force, which we call the spring force. So the spring force, it is called the restorative force of the spring. Okay, and this spring force will be minus of the external force, will be equal and opposite. The magnitude of the spring force will be equal to the magnitude of the external force, but the direction is opposite. Okay, Or for example, if we have a block lying on a surface, okay, so because of the weight of the block is getting pulled down, so the block is going to apply on the surface a downward force, okay, on the surface by the block. Okay, so this is the force on the block by the surface. So this and this, again if you see, this force and this force, they are an action reaction pair. Okay, the block is pushing the surface down, the surface is pushing the block up with an equal and opposite force. So they are an action reaction pair. Similarly, somebody is pulling the spring in this direction, so that person's hand will experience a backward force in the opposite direction. So that is an action reaction pair. Okay, so concentrate on these examples and just try to understand. Okay, I'll be providing you with the notes, so don't have to make pin copy notes of everything. Concentrate on the learning part in the lecture, that is the more important thing. Yes, Aman, that is correct. This is part of what is called Hooke's law. But Hooke's law gives you an exact mathematical statement of it, and we'll be studying about Hooke's law later in this chapter itself. Compression or extension, both. Compression is the case when you compress the length of the spring, by pushing it inwards, and elongation or extension is the case when something like this is happening. You're pulling the spring in such a way that its length is getting extended. So in both cases, the internal restorative force that the spring develops, because of it, something called its elasticity. So that force's formula is given by a principle called Hooke's law, which is going to be part of this chapter later. So that's correct, we are going to come to that. Okay, right, so you have understood about Newton's third law. Okay, so now that we are clear with the statement of the three laws and some basic type of applications of it, next we will look further at applications of Newton's laws in what is called mechanical systems. Okay, so mechanical systems are basically systems where the type of forces are only mechanical forces. Like contact forces, friction, okay, tension, etc. Okay, not forces like electromagnetic forces or photon forces or things like that. So the first thing we will see as part of the applications of Newton's laws in mechanical systems is some of the common forces. So the first and the most important in that is weight. So as you know, weight is the gravitational force on a body of mass m on the Earth's surface. Okay, so when this body is placed on the Earth's surface, but due to, or you can say applied by, the Earth. Okay, and we can treat the Earth as a very, very large sphere, okay, such that the mass of the earth is almost infinite compared to the body, and the radius of the earth is also almost infinite compared to the body. Okay, so weight is a W of any body in any situation is always a force that acts vertically downwards, and it has a magnitude of mg, where g is 9.8 meters per second square, or sometimes approximated as 10 meters per second square. So the important thing is that this is an invariant force regardless of what the body is doing. Okay, the body could be at rest on a surface, on a horizontal surface. Okay, could have a situation where on a surface the body is at rest. Okay, we could have a situation where the body is sliding down an inclined plane. Okay, it's in motion down an inclined plane. We could have a situation where the body is actually thrown into a projectile path. Okay. So it's having some velocity. Okay, but in all cases, regardless of the state of the body, whether it is in projectile motion or sliding down an incline or at rest on a horizontal surface, or whatever be the situation, the force of weight is invariant. It is always downwards, vertically downwards, and of magnitude mg. Okay, so weight is a force of magnitude mg, and direction vertically downwards always. Yeah, Prince, write this down first. We will come back to the spring. As I told you, we'll be discussing about springs in a lot of detail later. Okay, so don't worry about the spring force concept yet. Just to show you the action reaction principle over there. That if you pull on a spring with your hand is pulling on it outwards, but you experience an equal and opposite force inwards because of the elasticity of the spring. So that is the action reaction principle. Okay, so understood the concept of weight, no? Weight will only change if you change the location of the body from the surface of the earth to somewhere else. Like you take it to a huge height above the earth's surface, and by huge height I mean that it has to be several kilometers high. It's not a height of a few meters or even a few kilometers, because the height has to be significant compared to the radius of the earth, and radius of the earth is literally 6,400 kilometers and little more. Okay, so your weight is not going to change for a body as you go from the ground floor of a building to the top floor of the building. It's going to remain the same. Or as you go from one city to another, there is hardly any variation in the weight. But yes, if you take the body from the surface of the earth to the surface of the moon, yes, the weight will significantly change, because the mass of the moon and the radius of the moon is very different compared to earth. But in this chapter, for us, this is not important. That will come up in a chapter of gravitation. In this chapter, everything we are dealing with is to do with experiments on the surface of the earth. So the weight is always going to be mg in magnitude and vertically downwards. Okay, so hope this point is clear to all of you. Okay, now the next important type of force we will look at is something called normal reaction force. Okay, or we can also call it normal contact force, okay, usually denoted by N. the symbol N is used for. Okay, so this is a different type of force. This is a contact force that acts between two surfaces in contact. Okay, and in the direction perpendicular. Okay, and that is why it is called normal, because the term normal in geometry means perpendicular. Okay, so perpendicular to the plane of contact. Whenever two bodies or two surfaces are in contact, there is a plane along which they are in contact. So this normal force is the one that acts perpendicular to that plane. So for example, if we have a horizontal surface, okay, and now on this we have kept an object of any odd shape. So let's say we have kept an object which is like an egg shaped, ellipsoidal kind of shape, like a distorted sphere. So this is a body or an object of mass m. So what will happen is that between these two things there will be a contact force now. So this body will be pushing down the horizontal surface on which it's lying at the point of contact with a force which is perpendicular to the plane of contact. So the direction of this force will be downwards. So this is the normal reaction force applied by the body, okay, on the plane, on the floor or plane, okay, in the direction perpendicular to the plane, because that is the plane of contact. Okay, so now by action reaction principle you will understand that the body will also experience itself an upward force, let's say n prime, which is equal and opposite to this one. So this is the normal force applied. Now it is applied by the floor on, by the floor and on the body. Okay. So again that one's direction is also perpendicular to the plane of contact. Okay. So here n and n prime are an action reaction pair. Okay. So this is the most intuitive common example of normal reaction force. When you place a body of any shape and size on a horizontal surface, the body applies a pushing force downwards, vertically downwards on the surface, and the surface applies an equal and opposite reaction force upwards on the body. So collectively that pair of forces, they are called the normal contact forces. The term normal geometrically means perpendicular. Like we said, tangent and normal to a curve, like that. So the term normal means perpendicular to the surface of contact. Okay, so let's understand a numerical example of this. So in this next example, what we have is a combination of objects. There will be on the ground or on the floor. We are first keeping a larger block directly on the ground. So let's say we've got a cuboidal kind of block like this lying on the ground. Okay, and on top of this we are placing another smaller block. Directly like this now. So B is the second block which we are placing on top of this. Okay, so A and B are blocks of masses (100 kilograms) and let's say 80 kilograms. Okay, and take the value of G as 10 meters per second square. So we want to find out the normal reaction force between the floor and the block E. Secondly, we want to find out the normal reaction force between blocks A and B. Just work this out quickly. No, the answer is not correct, Aman. Just try again. second part's answer is correct, but the first part is not correct. So you have to just understand here that both the blocks are at rest. Okay. So what you have to understand is that both blocks A and B, okay, are in equilibrium. Okay, and at rest. Okay. So net force has to be 0 on each one. Okay. Now if you consider the block B, how many forces are acting on it? On the block B, you'll realize that there are only two forces acting. The gravitational pull of the earth, let's say that's the weight of B, that is mass into gravity. Okay. And the force with which the surface below is pushing it upwards. So this is, let's say, N1. Okay, so N1 is the normal reaction between A and B at their contact surface. Okay, so there are only these two forces. Okay, so what is happening for this? So therefore these two forces have to balance or cancel each other. No, because the net force on B is 0. Because of this reason, the net force on the object B is 0. So this is what we can say for the object B, for the block B. Okay, so N1 has to balance the weight of B. So N1 has to be equal to 80 kgs multiplied by 10 meters per second square. So N1 has to have a magnitude of 800 newtons. Okay. So that is the story of this normal reaction. Okay. Now, once we are clear about this, next let us think about what is happening for the block A. For the block A, now the thing you should not forget is that A has the block B sitting on top of it. So the block B is applying a downward force on it, which is exactly equal to this. It's equal to 800 newtons. Okay. And of course the block A has its own weight. So the earth is pulling it down with this much weight, and then the ground on which it is lying, that ground is pushing it up with some third force. Okay. So the ground is applying an upward force. Okay. So N2 here is the normal reaction between the floor and the block A at the contact surface. So A is pushing the floor down, the floor is pushing it back up. So again, now these three forces have to balance for A, because the net force has to be 0 because of force. Okay. So now what we can say that N2 balances the sum of N1 plus the weight of A. Okay. So N2 has to be equal to 800 newtons plus 100 kg into 10,000. So this normal reaction has to be 1800 newtons, 1800 newtons. Okay, so what is happening is in this system, there is one pair of normal reaction here, N1, N1, and there is another pair of normal reaction here. A is pushing the ground down with a normal reaction N2, the ground is pushing A back up with N2. So two pairs of normal contact forces. Okay. Okay, people, so hope this is clear to all of you. Any doubts with this explanation, people, please ask. Make sure the two diagrams I've drawn are clear. One is the force diagram for B and the second is the force diagram for the block A. That is what kind of forces are acting on each of these blocks. These diagrams are the basis of understanding the application of Newton's second law. Yeah, good. Alright, so hope this is clear. Now next up, before we discuss about more types of forces and more examples, we will do a quick understanding of a method of solving problems called free body diagram method. Okay, so this is called free body diagram, or in short from now we just call it FBD, for an object, okay, body, mass, whatever. Okay. So what do we mean by free body diagram? A free body diagram is a diagram to represent the forces acting on any body or mass or object as vector arrows. Okay, so in this, the body is represented like a particle, okay, or a point mass. It just makes the application of Newton's second law simpler. Okay, and all forces are drawn as vector arrows, okay, originating from the particle. Okay. So this is done to just make solving convenient. Okay, this is for making solving of Newton's second law convenient. Okay, and hence it is also called the FBD method of solving. So this is going to be a universal method that we follow for applying Newton's second law. Prince, just write down, there's nothing to explain. Just write down the statement or read it out, you will understand. It's just plain language. A free body diagram is just a diagram to represent the forces acting on a body or mass or object or whatever as vector arrows. So all we are trying to do is we are going to represent the forces in terms of vector arrows. So just as a simple example of this, you can pick up the question we've just done and just understand the free body diagrams you would have drawn to solve that. Okay. So in this question we just did, this previous question, so this system is at rest in a vertical plane like this. So now the free body diagram FBD for block B, how would that look? So we would represent the mass of block B by a particle or a point mass, and then we would show the force vectors that are acting on it, which were two forces, normal reaction N1 and the weight mg, as two vector arrows originating from it. So this would be our vector diagram. Or this would be our free body diagram, or what we call in short form from now as FBD. So this would be the weight of B, okay, and this would be the normal reaction acting on it from above. Similarly, if we make the free body diagram of the block E, now that block would have been shown like this. Okay, this is the block A as a particle, and we would have shown all the forces acting on it. So first of all, we would have shown the weight of that object, acting vertically downwards. This is a different weight to that one. This is weight of E, which is mass of A into G, which by the way was 1000 newtons. This one was 800 newtons. Okay. Then there would be the contact force that this is applying on this, so that would be downwards. There would be another arrow downwards. Okay. That arrow would represent the normal reaction applied on this block by the block above it, or the force with which A is getting pressed down by B. That would be shown with normal reaction N1 like this. Okay. And then finally the earth would apply an upward force on this type of upward force N2. So that would show up in the free body diagram as another vector arrow, but this time pointing upwards. So this would be our N2. So the free body diagram of the block B, it would have two forces, N1 and weight. Okay, and this one has three forces, N1, N2 and the weight of the block. So here it's obviously a very simple situation because the forces are only vertical. But as we come to more complicated cases where the forces are in many different directions, you will see that it becomes very convenient to use the free body diagram method. And it's a way in which the diagram is not going to have too much cluttering and is going to be easy to analyze. Okay. So hope this is clear, people. Now let's understand a more complicated question with the help of the free body diagram method. Okay. So this time what is happening is our system is like this. Okay, we have a solid sphere of mass 5 kilograms. G is 10 meters per second square. Now this sphere is resting not on the ground or not on a horizontal surface, but a combination of two surfaces like this. One surface like this and another surface like this. Okay, so it's basically wedged between two inclined planes. Okay, let's say surface A and this one is surface B. Now also these two surfaces are such that they had some angles given to us with respect to the horizontal direction. They are fixed surfaces, okay, they are not movable surfaces, they are fixed surfaces. So this sphere is just resting in equilibrium between these two surfaces, okay, such that this angle here, let us say is alpha, which is 37 degrees, and this angle here is beta, let's say, which is 53 degrees. It just happens that these are these. Okay. So in this next example, a sphere rests in equilibrium, okay, between two fixed inclined surfaces, okay, as shown in the diagram. Okay. So first of all, make the free body diagram of the sphere. Okay. And secondly, from that find out the normal reaction forces, let's say NA and NB, due to the two surfaces A and B acting on it. Okay. So through this question we will understand the importance of free body diagram and how it simplifies problem solving for us. So just follow the instruction of the question and try it out. Ultimately you will see it is all about vector algebra and bit of geometry. Very good, that's correct, Anmol. Okay. So see, what is happening here is that when a sphere like this is in contact with let's say a surface like this, then what will happen is that at a point like this there will be a contact force that acts on the sphere, and the direction of that contact force will be along this perpendicular line. This line will incidentally pass through the center of the sphere. Okay. That is the geometry of a sphere. So the contact force that acts over here between them it will have to act like this. This is the direction of the normal contact force. Okay. Now further what we can see is that if the inclined plane, so at this point if we draw the horizontal axis and the vertical axis, okay, then we can see that here, supposing this angle is some theta, okay, then this angle will be theta, so this angle will be theta. Okay, so this is the easy thing to remember, that whenever we have an inclined plane which is making an angle theta with the horizontal, then any shape of body, it doesn't matter it's a sphere or what kind of shape it is, okay, the direction of the normal reaction that acts on it will always be perpendicular to this. So it will act in a direction which makes the same theta with the vertical. यहाँ पे ये एंगल थीटा हो जाएगा, this angle will become theta, the same as this angle. So this is the thing to remember. Okay. So likewise from the other side, if this angle is theta and we have some kind of a body here, then the normal force acting on that body will act along this line, and now this angle will again become theta. This angle will be theta. Okay. So coming back here, on this sphere, if I make a more sort of detailed diagram, so there is going to be one contact force because of surface A, and that contact force is going to act from this direction somewhere here, like this. Passing through the center. So that will be such a direction that it is perpendicular to this inclined plane. Okay. So because this inclined plane was making an angle of 53 degrees to the horizontal, so this normal reaction will make the same angle 53 with the vertical. This angle will be 53 degrees. Okay. So let's say this was the surface A. So this is the normal reaction because of A. Now similarly, there's another plane of contact on this side. Okay, like this. And this one is at an angle of 37 this time. So the contact force that acts on this side will be acting at a different angle. It will be acting at like this. We are acting along this line. So this is the normal reaction because of B. So this will act along this line which is at 37 to the vertical. Okay, this angle will be 37 degrees. Okay, so now when I make the free body diagram of the sphere, instead of representing it like its own geometry, I have to represent it like a point mass. So on the point mass, what all forces are acting now, you can see that there is going to be the normal reaction because of the surface A, which will act in this sort of direction. Okay. Then there will be the normal reaction because of the surface B, which will act in this sort of direction. Okay. And finally there will be the weight of the object, which will act in this sort of direction. The weight acts vertically downwards, and we've just seen here that this is at 53 to the vertical and this one is at 37 to the vertical. Okay, so this is the free body diagram. This is the answer to the first part. This is how we'll make the free body diagram. Okay, now second part, from this we have to find the magnitude of A and B. So that we will do by balancing forces. That is, the net force should be 0. But the first job here is to get the free body diagram correct, including the angles involved between the vectors and all that. And for that, this concept becomes important, that normal contact force always acts normal to the surface of contact or perpendicular to the surface of contact. So if you are in an inclined plane that is like this, on any body here, the normal reaction will act along this kind of a line, where the angle with the vertical will become the same as the angle which this is making with the horizontal. Okay. And similarly, a mirror image of that one is this diagram. So doesn't matter which side the surface is. Yeah, which part is not clear to you, Prince? Just tell me. The normal reaction due to A or the normal reaction due to B, which part is not clear? Okay, so I'll take you back to free body diagram. Understand the definition of free body diagram, then you can. Okay. So this is a free body diagram. This is what we do. We represent the forces as vector arrows such that they are originating, okay, from a point mass. Whatever body on which the forces are acting, we draw it like a point mass or a particle, and then whatever forces are acting on it, we draw them as vector arrows which are originating from that point mass. Okay, Prince, so that definition is clear for FBD, free body diagram. Okay, now next thing, you come back here and see how we have applied it to this particular body. Okay, so this body here is resting against two surfaces. So there is some contact force because of this surface, like this one. Then there is some contact force from this side because of the other surface, that is like this other force. Okay, so those forces are shown, the contact forces are shown here. So finally, when you convert this diagram to a free body diagram, you have to represent the whole sphere with a point mass. Okay, so this is the sphere. that point mass is representing the sphere, and the vector arrows are representing the forces which are acting on it. So in addition to this, there is also weight. Okay. There is also mg or weight. So that shows up here. Is it clear now? Okay. Now how we'll find the magnitudes of normal reactions? So for that we'll have to resolve the forces. So for this we'll have to resolve the two normal reactions into x and y components, taking x axis as horizontal and y axis as vertical. So let's resolve it, okay, and let's understand. So next is the vector resolution from the free body diagram. Okay. Okay, so to begin with, the forces acting were weight, then is this normal reaction. Okay. And then there was this other normal reaction. Something like this. Okay. This was normal reaction due to the surface B. This was normal reaction due to the surface A. This was mg. Mg is known to be 50 newtons. Okay. Then also we saw that with respect to the vertical direction, okay, this angle was 53. Okay. And with respect to the vertical direction, this angle was 37. So now next thing we are going to resolve the forces. So start with the resolution of this normal reaction. So drop a perpendicular here. This component will become how much? NA sine 53 or cos 37. So 4 by 5 NA. And drop a perpendicular here. So this component is becoming how much? NA cos 53 or sine 37. So that is 3 by 5 NA. So this is resolved. Okay. And similarly, drop a perpendicular here. Okay. So now this component, the horizontal component of this force NB is along the negative x direction. Okay. So that is NB sine 37 or 3 by 5 NB, and the vertical component of this normal reaction is this one. So it is 4 by 5 NB. Okay. So now you can replace these two forces with their components. Now this component is, so you can make a fresh free body diagram where you can show these two components of the normal reaction NB are 4 by 5 NB and 3 by 5 NB. So that's taken care of this normal reaction. Similarly, the components of Na, okay, they are now horizontal component along the x-axis, this, and vertical component along the y-axis, like this. 3 by 5 Na. That's taken care of this. Okay, and of course you have mg, which we don't need to resolve because it's already vertically downwards. Okay. And mg's magnitude is 50. So these are the resolved forces. Okay, forces after resolution into xy components. So now what is happening? The net force has to be 0. So if the net force has to be 0, that means forces must be balanced. Okay, firstly along x-axis, and secondly along y-axis. So each of these balancing forces will give you an equation, and solving those equations we'll get the value of normal reactions. Okay, so write down this resolution diagram and then we'll come to the equations. Understood now? So for component of a vector, we just use this relation, that if a vector is making an angle theta like this, then this component is a cos theta and this component is a sin theta. Okay. Similarly, if a vector is suppose making an angle theta like this here, then this component will become the sine component, because this angle is 90 minus theta, and this component will become the cos component. That's it. So it's just using vector resolution, this kind of concept. So now just substitute the values in the two equations below along x-axis and y-axis, and that will give you the required equations. Okay, so see, now this resolution along the x-axis, forces have to balance, no? So along x-axis, how are forces getting balanced? That is going to happen if this 4 by 5 Na balances 3 by 5 Nb. So this tells you that Na is 3/4 of Nb. That's your equation 1. Okay. And along your y-axis, the sum of the vertical forces 4 by 5 Nb plus 3 by 5 Na has to balance the weight. So 4NB plus 3Na by 5 has to equal 50 newtons. That's your second equation. And that's it. Now just substitute this over here. Next step. So that's it. That becomes your answer. Okay, so this is the general method of solving anything in Newton's laws now. Make the free body diagram, then resolve the forces, and then apply Newton's second law, that net force is equal to mass into acceleration. Okay people, so hope this is clear. So we'll conclude here today, and next lecture we will look at more applications of free body diagram and also more types of forces. So far we've discussed about normal reaction and weight, but gradually we'll bring into the fold things like tension in a string or a thread, then also eventually friction and things like that. Okay, so once you got these two equations, by balancing the forces along x and y axis, rest of it is just a matter of algebra, solving the equations simultaneously. Okay, so people, that's it for today's session. I'll send you the notes. Okay. Also start reading Newton's Laws of Motion chapter from H.C. Verma or Resnick Halliday, whichever of the two books you have as a reference book at home. Okay.